Today, we are going to review the essential steps for the installation of the IRadimed FMD1 and the wireless RALU display. We will focus on proper wiring and wiring concealment, calibrating the FMD1, and dialing in the FMD1 sensitivity. Additionally, we will provide step-by-step instructions on setting up the FMD1's date and time, and how to set the FMD1's alarm volume. Please review the mounting video if additional installation information is required. Step 1. Wiring the FMD1. Once the FMD1 has been successfully mounted, the installer must wire the system. First, the installer will route the AC power supply's wire along the shortest path from the outlet to the RALU. Generally, the wire is run close and parallel to the floor to just below the RALU, and then vertically up to the RALU's power terminal. The installer will remove the RALU's bezel cover, cut and strip the wire, discarding the remaining, and attach the red positive wire to the first terminal from the left, finishing with the negative blue or black wire to the second terminal from the left. Next, the installer will route the smaller wire from the bottom of the master rail downward toward the floor and across to under the RALU and then up to the RALU's terminal. The installer will cut and strip the wire, discarding the remaining, and attach the red positive wire to the third terminal from the left and the black negative wire to the fourth terminal from the left. Once wiring to the RALU is completed, the installer will replace the bezel cover and plug the AC power supply into the outlet. Once the RALU and FMD1 power on, the installer will use the wire channel sections and corner fittings for wire concealment. Using the PVC cutter, the installer will cut the wire channel sections to the appropriate length. Next, the installer will open the wire channels and place the wires into the channel. The installer will then peel off the protective adhesive film and stick the channel to the door jamb or wall and hold for 1 minute to ensure a secure adhesion. The installer will then secure the AC power supply wire to the wall using the included cable clips. Finally, the installer will apply glue dots to the various angled wire channels and end caps. The installer will place the 90-degree wire channel in each corner of the doorway's header and the T-shaped channel where the RALU power cable and master rail power cable converge. The installer will finish by placing caps on the top of each side rail and one at the bottom of the master rail, with the rounded cap at the bottom of the secondary rail. Step 2. Calibrating the FMD1. The next step of installation of the FMD1 is to calibrate the system. First, the installer will press the menu button on the RALU screen and then select the settings button. Once on the settings screen, the installer will press the setup button to proceed to the setup menu. Next, the installer will press the calibrate button and the installer will follow the prompts on the RALU screen to obtain a proper calibration. Step 3. Dialing in the FMD1 sensitivity. The installer will now set the FMD1 sensitivity by pressing the menu button and then the settings button. Once on the settings menu, the installer will press the setup button and then the FMD sensitivity button. The installer will use the slider to adjust the device's sensitivity and can readjust until the desired sensitivity has been set. Dragging the slider to the right will make the FMD more sensitive, while dragging the slider to the left will make the FMD less sensitive. Step 4. Setting the FMD's date and time. To maintain reporting accuracy, the installer must set the date and time on the RALU. First, the installer will press the menu button and then select the settings button. On the settings screen, the installer will press the customize button and then select the date button. The installer will enter the date using the keypad, starting with the month, day, and then finish with the year. To save the entered date, the installer will press the set date button. The RALU will return to the Customize menu. The installer will then press the Time button and use the keypad to set the time on the RALU. Once the time is entered, the installer will press the Set Time button to save the entered time. The installer will press the Menu button and then the Home button to return to the RALU's home screen. Step 5. Setting the alarm volume. To set the alarm volume, the installer will press the menu button and then the settings button. Once on the settings screen, the installer will press the customize button and then the volume button. Using the slider, the installer can set the alarm volume and entry volume. The alarm volume sets the decibel level of the alarm the RALU sounds when the door opens and a Ferrous threat is detected. The entry volume sets the decibel level of the beep the RALU sounds when a clinician or patient passes through the MRI Zone 4 door. The FMD1 is now ready to screen patients and staff entering MRI Zone 4. For more information, visit www.IRadimed.com. For technical support, please call us at 407-677-8022.